Hi, my name is Jordan Kennedy. This is my Module 16 case study, Internet Use Violations for EDL 850 School Law. First, my problem identification and analysis. What do I know? I know Dr. Forbes is the principal at Roosevelt High School. This is a very affluent area of the city that they are in. Students have access to top-notch materials such as clothes, technology. Parents there are financially secure. Ms. Walker was hired by Dr. Forbes without any teaching experience. She provides very rigorous instruction with high expectations for students, and this causes them much stress. Her expectations and instruction have caused multiple complaints from parents because of the stress it is causing the students. I also know that Dr. Forbes has provided suggestions to Ms. Walker in hopes of helping her reduce the stress for her students and create more positive interactions. In the case study it read, although Dr. Forbes has discussed techniques Ms. Walker can use to reduce student stress and increase positive interactions with students, she hasn't successfully implemented his suggestions. Parents and students continue to complain about the class workload and poor instruction. Ms. Forbes has yet to successfully implement the changes, and parents are still unhappy about the stress that is being felt. Ms. Walker has received an anonymous threatening email. This email led her to a site that made derogatory comments regarding her teaching. There was also a threat that said, "Who wants Ms. Walker to disappear?" Ms. Walker contacted Mr. Forbes right away to inform him of the incident and let him know that she didn't feel safe in her own home. Ms. Walker expressed to Dr. Forbes that she suspected the culprit to be Randy Franks. In the text it said, "It'll be that Randy Franks did this, Dr. Forbes. He does not like me and makes snide comments to other students whenever I turn my back to the class. He is so clever that I haven't been able to prove that he's the disruptive influence, but I'll just bet that Randy developed that web page. The other students ask for his help with computer problems all the time." What I need to know, who has Ms. Walker had issues with this year in class? I'd also like to know if these were documented. What school policies are in place regarding cyberbullying? Is this site and or email tied to the school server, email domain, etc.? What more do we know about Randy Franks? What is his relationship like with Ms. Walker? I'd also want to know just more about his background. I'd want to know, of course, if this is a prank. Is this a real threat? Either way, we need to proceed the same way. Why does Dr. Forbes automatically assume that this is a prank? What is the problem? Ms. Walker struggles with her classroom management and building relationships with students. Her focus is very directed toward instruction and rigor, but not as much focused on pedagogy. Parents and students are frustrated with Ms. Walker. She has not effectively adapted the strategies provided to her by Dr. Forbes. Someone sent Ms. Walker an anonymous email. This email led Ms. Walker to a site with derogatory messages and a threat that has led her to feel unsafe within her own home. My plan of action, step 1, would be to review policy. Students, staff, parents, and myself all need to be aware of the laws and the policies that go along with cyberbullying, technology usage, harassment, etc. This would need to be reviewed with all. I must be aware of the school's policy before moving further with my actions regarding this case. I need to know the protocol. I need to know what's expected on my end as well as what's expected from students and parents. Whomever committed this act committed an act of bullying. The site said derogatory comments about Ms. Walker's teaching while also threatening her. Plan of action, my step 2 would be Ms. Walker's student incidents and reports. First, I'd want to talk with Ms. Walker about why she believes Randy is the culprit. She would need to explain the incidents that have taken place between her and Randy. I would also want to know if those have been documented. I would want to know what other students Ms. Walker has had significant issues with that would lead her to believe that they would do something such as this. I would contact then technology department. This would help me determine what information can be found from the email and the website, and if any of it links with the school. If any information is found, I need to see if it corresponds with any students that Ms. Walker suspects or has problems with, and then identify which student it would be. Here, this issue based on promoting success of all students. If a student is suspected, I would call them to the office to ask questions. This would be done with myself, the student, and another witness, just a third party to ensure that we have someone else there. Should there be a second student involved, they would be called in at a separate time following the same procedure. After being able to prove the said students were involved, I would contact the school board and the superintendent. Along with the superintendent, we could determine the consequence for the action based on school policy. Finally, I would call parents in to meet with myself, the identified student, and the superintendent. I would explain the incident and the punishment. I would also want to put into place a plan of improvement for Ms. Walker to ensure that her classroom management is directly addressed and that the suggested strategies are being utilized. I think that Ms. Walker's classroom management would be a huge part of this problem, not that it justifies how students reacted or suspected students reacted. However, if we don't solve this problem with Ms. Walker, these are things that could continually happen and continually cause unhappy parents and students. Regardless of whether this act was a prank or a serious threat, it is clear that it stems from discontent with her and her teaching practices. It is said that Ms. Walker has high expectations for students and her classroom and is focused on academics. Putting into place this plan would prevent the issue from arising again, while also making her teaching more effective. Student success was promoted in this case. Students were not falsely accused. School policies were followed. Student privacy was protected. Each student was called in separately. No one was assumed guilty without proof. The teacher with whom the issue arose has a plan in place to help address her classroom management and teaching effectiveness. This is something that is going to benefit her current students and her future students as well. Debrief the problem. What was I thinking? Students oftentimes act without thinking. Something that they thought to be a prank could be perceived otherwise. This is why it is important to review policy for all so they're all aware how serious the actions were. In this school and community, there are high expectations for the teachers and administrators. In a community such as this, where the high parent support and focused students are present, making a mistake as the administrator that was not supported by the parents would lead to much backlash. I think that this put Dr. Forbes really kind of in the middle of the whole situation. No matter how he felt instinctively, he had to be very aware of his decisions, as any building leader would have to be. I have had teachers such as Ms. Walker who seem to have much content knowledge but very little experience with classroom management or building relationships. These teachers need explicit instruction on the importance of relationships and classroom management. I think back to my time in my undergrad career, and I don't think that that part is ever explicitly taught. That's the part that you have to learn when you get into the classroom. And so giving Ms. Walker benefit of the doubt, I do feel that she needed to be directed to focus on those things. What was I feeling? I felt that Dr. Forbes didn't take Ms. Walker very seriously when she explained the situation to him. While it's valuable for him to try and calm Ms. Walker in such a frantic situation, his lackadaisical reaction could lead her to think he is apathetic or not taking her seriously. I do feel that this is something that could be considered unsolved, at least from my interpretation. Having teachers similar to Ms. Walker, I know how frustrating it can be when they are only focused on content rather than the relationships with students. I appreciate her rigorous instruction. However, the management and relationships must be in place before that can happen. I was frustrated that Ms. Walker didn't take advice from Dr. Forbes. Debrief the problem. What was I valuing? I do value the support and involvement of all parents and students. I know that in some schools or in even some classes, it can be hard to find parents or students who are focused on succeeding. I know as the administrator and as a teacher, this definitely adds pressure, but I appreciate their concern with academics and their involvement. I was also valuing the privacy of all students. I know that kids can make mistakes. Something they think is a prank can turn out to be extremely severe. Prior to accusing anyone, I found it imperative to prove someone guilty. Then, upon meeting with the student, I did so very privately. Standard 5, how did you demonstrate a sense of integrity and ethical behavior that serves as a model for all members of the school? Before making any accusations, I researched and found proof. This protected the privacy of all students while also keeping the students' best interests at the forefront. I provided appropriate consequences to the student based on district policy and correspondence with the superintendent. I provided the teacher in question with a plan to help her improve her teaching practices in order to prevent any more similar situations from arising. How did you treat people fairly, equitably, and with dignity and respect? I took seriously the concerns of the teacher and investigated completely and thoroughly, regardless of whether or not this was suspected to be a prank. I respected the family of the student who committed the act by keeping the situation very private. I kept the family informed as to what was happening, but did so in a way that didn't spread rumors or violate the rights of the student. I know that in schools, kids can talk amongst themselves and spread things based on what they see or what they hear, and by pulling in kids very privately, I think that I hopefully prevented that. Although I did not understand the teaching style and practices of Miss Walker, the teacher, I worked with her calmly and fairly to develop a plan of improvement. How did you demonstrate a personal and professional code of ethics that inspires others to higher levels of performance? Prior to doing anything, I reviewed policy. I think that's important because it would be easy to act upon what I thought was best or what I think I should do, but before making any of those I think decisions, I checked to make sure I am following protocol, I'm doing as I'm supposed to do. I reviewed expectations, laws, and policies with all students and staff to ensure that those who were unclear of expectations now had a very clear understanding. I think that's important in the current situation, but I think it will also help prevent other situations such as this from happening again. And even if it wasn't a student that was guilty, it also is just a good review and good practice for all students to be aware of the laws and policies regarding cyberbullying, especially in our society today. Each person in the case, regardless of their role or wrongdoings, was treated fairly and respectfully. I ensured that everyone's issues were addressed and privacy was respected for everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.